Hello everyone, I want to welcome you on the next webinar, which topic will be FoF design with ADOxx. Today, our webinar will be slightly different than usual because I'll be both moderator and speaker representing BOC Group, to be more precise, BOC Poland. So, let's begin. As always, we are using GoToMeeting and all your microphones are muted. So if you have any questions, do feel free to expand the GoToMeeting panel and use the chat function to let me know what would you like me to answer. As always, at the very end, we'll have Q&A session. So the content will be about 30 minutes, more or less. And afterwards, we'll have some minutes discussion and for Q&A. What are our topics for today? We'll start with concept of modeling and why do we need modeling. Then we'll go and discuss what is ADOxx and how can it be helpful for you in our DigiFoF project. Then we'll make a short summary and, as I told you, we'll have time for Q&A session. So, without further ado, let's continue. First of all, we have to ask, why do we need modeling? Isn't it sufficient just to start building things and this way create factories of the future? Well, it is not that easy. As even the name of the project implies, digital design skills, we need to design something before we can build it. So this is why we need models. The big challenge of many organizations is that they are trying to identify which digital services that support making business and make sure that they don't invest in digital services that create risks or raise risks, create difficulties, or are not viable, that do not pay off. So the thing is that we need to figure out how to select proper options in digitalization, because not every digital services not all digital service really makes sense. So we need to pick those services that are helpful and beneficial for us and avoid those who are not. And the best way to do it is to plan, is to design. So what does the industry say about conceptual design and modeling? As you probably had a chance to see, in deliverable 1.2, there was a survey regarding importance of design skills. So what is important is that 80% of employers perceive that those skills are a factor that have decisive impact on their promotion. So basically, this is something that they find as important, valuable, and useful for the companies. So this is something very important when it comes to promotions, remunerations, and so on. So basically, nearly everyone agrees that design skills are important. And in the survey, as you can see, the most hot areas where trainings are useful are related to software for designing. So again, we have modeling, designing stuff, and for product management. So lots of employees participate in trainings regarding software for designing things, so AutoCAD, CATIA, and things like this, and also in trainings about more soft skills like project management, Agile, or Scrum. So as you can see, designing is really hot and important topic. And here you can also see how did the training needs look like in various employee groups. Again, this is a result of deliverable 1.2. But how can we introduce, teach, and perform design thinking, conceptual design, and modeling in practice? Well, our previous webinar, done by Wilfried, showed you on So OMI Labs give you great opportunities to learn more about those innovative concepts of designing, of creating, that help you plan your digital transformation. And one of the aspects which is important for OMI Labs is the software. And this is exactly what we'll be covering today. So apart from aspects like scenarios, like runtime, so actual robots or mbots or maybe drones or things that you could see in our previous webinar, we need to use some kind of software to plan and to model all the things. And this is what we'll be covering today. Today we'll be covering ADOxx. Further webinar will cover the topic of Olive. So now let's move to the topic of ADOxx in DigiFoF. But begin a small quote. So the FoF modeling tools will be the IT-based implementation of the design method on the meta modeling platform ADOxx. So ADOxx is something very important. ADOxx is an open innovation community. You can visit that ADOxx.org, and it offers you lots of possibilities. So after we go to the website, maybe let me briefly switch to the website. You can see lots of useful elements. Here you can download the meta modeling platform. You also have access to information about Olive, which will be covered in the next webinar. And you can also download some existing cases of modeling approaches. And more can be found on omilab.org. What is ADOxx? It is a very, very powerful platform that allows you to create your own modeling toolkit. So, regardless of what your needs are, you can create your own modeling method which will support your specific needs. So this is important that you not only have some predefined options, but you can also create your own tool. And within DigiFoF, we'll be using several of those custom types. ADOxx.org has over 24 modeling toolkits that are free for download and that were created by community members. It has almost 4,000 stakeholders. It has almost 3,000 developers from all over the world, as you can see. There are lots of universities and research groups that are supporting ADOxx.org, and lots of research laboratories in Austria, Germany, Switzerland, South Korea, and more. And ADOxx is used actively in various e-research projects, such as our project, which allows to create content that will be valuable also for others. And also, thanks to using ADOxx, those projects can benefit from those powerful features and also from the results of the past projects. So you will see that we'll be using two already existing configurations of ADOxx. So two modeling toolkits that you can download, which are based on ADOxx engine. As you can see, on ADOxx webpage, you can learn more, you can download the tool. If you would like to, you could also watch the tutorials, read frequently asked questions and documentation. And here you could access the commonly used configurations, but also you could go to omilab.org for more elements. So this is what we'll be discovering today. So what are the options that are useful for us for DigiFoF? By the way, if you are interested in topics like this, I would suggest you the book Domain-Specific Conceptual Modeling. And now, how does the ADOxx look like? And how does it help us? So, generally, as I told you, the goal of ADOxx is to allow you to develop your own modeling toolkit. In a second, I'll show you one example modeling toolkit based on ADOxx platform. Afterwards, I will show you a second one. you will see that while some elements are very common, so the whole user interface, such as that when you open the tool, you'll have the menu bar, action bar, explorer with list of models, and so on and so on. Also, there will be elements that will be different, and those elements are specific for each of the scenarios. Now, let me open ADOxx tool. Here, you can see B-App Modeling Toolkit. It is based on ADOxx platform. And how does it look like? After you open the tool, you will notice following elements. So here you have an explorer. By default, you have folder exercises and place for various exercises, and also folder testing. I created additional folder and started models available on the website, which will be used afterwards, which I will show you. So this is Explorer. Here you can learn more about what is inside the tool. Here you can create models, you can alter them, you can work with them. Here you can see the start page. By default, it shows you recently opened models. As you can see, I was watching the models for the robot creating coffee. This will be something that I'll be expanding on in a second. And here I can very easily access them. Of course, if I would like to, I can also simply click here to open the models from here. If you no longer use any model, here you can click the X to close it. If certain model is very useful for you and you want to have it always at your fingertips, you need to simply right-click on the model and select option Add to Favorites. And then on your home page, you will have it in your favorites. So this is the start page. Now let's move to additional elements. Here you have a model that allows you to define how the robotic arm should behave. No worries, we'll get back to details in a second. Now I want to tell you just how does the ADOxx work on a B-App example. So here you can see content of your database, so Explorer of models. Here you see the drawing area. Here there is a content. Of course, you could create elements, you could move them freely. Here you have options which can be inserted. You can think of it like a palette for a painting. So I can insert various types of objects, and afterwards each of them can be extended with more data. Here I have a navigator, so the overview of what is in the model. It is very helpful if you have very big models and you don't have a chance to see everything. So for example, if you're working on a model that spans several screens, but you want to have an overview, and using navigator you can very easily jump to the specific parts of the model. Or if you use this border, you can very easily change the zoom level. Now, if you take a look, you will notice that here you have various menus. So you can create a new model, you can open existing models, you can save the model, you can perform various options. And each of the options is assigned to some kind of component. So here I'm in the modeling. If I would like to analyze what I created, I would need to move to analyzes. If I would like to simulate something, I would move to simulation. As you can see, every time I click here, you will notice that many points here change. And additionally, please take a look, quick access icons here are also adapted. So for example, when I'm in modeling, I can create a model, I can open the model, I can save the model, I can print it, I can generate graphics. But when I'm in the import-export, this is the one with the puzzle icon, I can, for example, import models from other person or export so that other people can use what I created. So this is how it works. Now, let me click on one element so that you can see what is inside. Nearly every element that you can see here, after you click it, has a notebook which contains more information. Notebooks consist of chapters. So here you can see that I click and see what is in each of the chapters. Some chapters have many pages. In this case, you will have this marker on the bottom right part of the notebook. And I can simply click on the arrows to move back and forth. So as you can see, here we have a model in a graphical form, and each of the elements has notebook where you can add more information. Okay, sounds cool, but how does it help us? Now, let me go back to the slides. As I told you, the ADOxx is offering the platform, which will be the same for various tools, but what will be different will be the options available inside. And this is one of the most powerful features in ADOxx. It is a platform that allows you to create totally generic modeling method. So you can create any modeling method that you wish. ADOxx allows you to define what will be your modeling language. So what will be elements that people will be able to insert? What will be the syntax? What will be the notation? So how will it look like? What will be the semantics, so meaning? Then you can also specify what kind of algorithms and mechanism will the tool offer. So for example, in our case, we'll have options to call robots using REST API. So we'll be using API calls. So not only pretty pictures, but also possibility to perform some actions, to use some code to script and use some scripts to create something tangible. And how does it work in practice? In ADOxx, we have something called meta-meta model. So we have something like classes, relation classes, attributes. It may sound a little bit abstract, so now let me show you a small example. Here, I'll be creating a new model just for the example purposes. As you can see, on the window of creating new models, I can select what do I want to create. So I could say that I'm interested in business processes. So I could create, for example, BPM diagram or company map, or maybe decision requirement diagram, so DMN, or maybe model of documents, or flowchart, or working environment model. Or maybe I would like to use EPC method, or maybe a Petri net, or in my case, entity relationship model. So let me create the one. So I selected what do I want to create. Now I want to pick where will it be saved, in the main group, so exercises, and I'll name it, so ER demo. And here you can see that in this model type I can insert elements like entity, relation, and attribute. But if I would open different model, so for example here you will see Petri net, you will see totally different options. And this is how it works. You can specify what kind of elements will be available where. So ADOxx allows me to specify that for entity relationship model, I will have available options like entity, like relation, and attribute. Each of them can inherit some elements. So for example, I could create some class that is not visible, but is abstract class, like ADOxx metamodeling class called DConstruct. Then it has a child abstract class ERConstruct, and both entity and relation are children of this class. And this is pretty useful because it allows you to define some elements only once and they will be afterwards inherited to both children. Of course, each of the classes can have some relations with others. So, for example, you could see that I could say that this somehow is linked with this one. Important thing is that each of the classes that you define in the meta model translates directly to what kind of elements you can insert, because what you see here is a class. But now when I click, I'll be creating instance of this class. So those two entities are two instances of the same class, which is called entity ER. This element is an instance of a totally different class. In this case, it is a class named attribute. Here, if I would click this, it would be yet another class. It would be relation. So the important thing is that those elements here are instances, but they are all children of a common class. Generally, you can pretty easily see which elements share the same class because they have very similar look. By default, when you insert them, you'll have the name, which consists of the name of the class and some ID. But of course, you could change it to adapt it to your needs. So it could be, for example, let's say customer data, and here we could say maybe employee data. So names are different, but you can still see that those are elements which share the same class. By the way, what you can consider, those are not only pretty pictures. The elements here have specific attributes, which I will explain in a second. But also, you can analyze the content of the models. For example, opening the model in a tabular view. So this way you can see that you have two instances of entity and one instance of relation and one instance of attribute. And here you can see all the attributes that you could insert in the notebook. But also, if you would like to, you could use the analyzes to search for the content of the database, to analyze, to change, and work with your data. And now, how does it work in practice? As I told you, you can specify what kind of attributes will be available for each element. So, for example, you could say that if you have a class called attribute, it will have some parameters. So, for example, attribute will have a name, it will have a description. You can also add some open questions. You could specify what kind of attribute is it. Is it a single value, multi-value, or is it derived? You can specify whether this is a key attribute or not something very crucial. You can also add more elements. You can specify in SQL what kind of data type will it be, how long will it be, whether it needs to contain some values or it can be empty, so null, whether it should be unique, and so on and so on. As you can see, the attributes available for each of the classes are different. So elements available here differ from what is here. So entities and attributes have different notebooks, and this is also something that can be specified while the modeling tool based on ADOxx platform is being prepared. So each of the classes contains some elements. It has elements like the graph rep, so how does it look like? In this case, you know that the entity will be greenish rectangle, and also it has so-called attrib, and the attrib defines what will be inside the notebook. So what you will see when you open the notebook. What will be the attributes, how they will be arranged into the notebook chapters, and what will be the visualization, whether it will be drop-down or some other forms of selecting and inputting data. So this is how it works. As you can see, the very powerful feature of ADOxx is that not only you can have very useful model that you can create, but ADOxx allows you to create your own methods. So you could take one method and extend it, add some attributes, maybe hide something, maybe add some additional model types. So this is very powerful and very flexible and very useful for us, because in DigiFoF we may need some small tweaks, some small changes if some elements need to be adapted to the results of our project. So this is how you can create your own modeling language using ADOxx. Of course, if you would like to learn more, there are much more detailed documentation elements on the ADOxx.org website, but just to give you a very quick overview. ADOxx defines the meta model, which is an instance of the ADOxx meta model. The whole platform is developed in C++, and on top of this, you can create your own method-specific meta model, which specifies what kind of model types will be available, what kind of classes will be available, what kind of attributes, how will they look like, what will be the notebooks, and this is something that you develop here. And then, when you create a certain model, it is again just an instance. So here you specified what types of models will be available. So for example, you specified that you will have those types of models, and then every time you create a model, it's just an instance. So those 3 models here we can see are all instances of the same model type, in this case flowchart. So this is how you can work with ADOxx, and on the basis of this definition you can model, you can make queries, and you can perform various options. And how it could be used in DigiFoF. There are several ways to use the models. I will focus on the scenario 2 shown on the slides. So moving from design to operation, so operationalization and engineering of the assembly arm. But of course, there are also other scenarios which you could explore. In this scenario, I could use the bot, so assembly arm. I could use the modeling tool. In this case, it would be B-up, so the modeling tool that you already know, that you could see in my presentation some seconds ago. And I would use the physical device, so the bot magician. So here we are using a specific modeling method, which is using some device, and it is being used in a specific application scenario. But as you can see, in various scenarios, you can use various elements. So for example, I could have a scenario where apart from the B-up, I would be using a totally different configuration of ADOxx. It would be, for example, scene to model. I will show it to you later on, and you will see what are the differences between the modeling tools that are based on the same platform. So how could it look like? If I would like to assemble something using the assembly arm, I could have some questions, like for example, how to abstract robot movement. Maybe there are some domain specific, maybe some target will be different if I want to create a hamburger. There will be some process specific elements, some API specifics. Then I will need to want to interpret the model, and then how to create the model, whether it will be human modeling, knowledge-based modeling, or maybe AI. And options are various. You could, for example, have a robotic arm which has fixed position of various items. Maybe I would have option like here, or maybe I would be using image recognition, so the robotic arm would not need to know where the objects are present, because it would simply recognize it by a picture. And what is useful is that those models allow you to really perform some elements. So you can specify what the robot needs to do, and it calls the REST API and operates the robotic arm. So this way you can start from various types of models. You could see here some kind of flowcharts. Here you can see the Petri nets. You can also see examples like totally graphical modeling, where you could specify what kind of ingredients are needed for the burger to be created by a robotic arm. But this is not important. Important thing is that here ADOxx allows you to create various model types, which then translate into automation of those elements. And now I would like to show you a simple example. How could it work? So you could already see in my models, but I have various models showing how the robotic arm could behave. So now I will show it to you in a little bit more detail. So you can see, for example, how the robotic arm is going to use to move to position, how will it pick up at the position, how can it place at the position. Each of the elements that you can see here can contain some attributes. Obviously, if I would like to execute it, I would need some technical details. So probably I would need some security token. I would need to specify how do I want to make the REST API call. So in my case, obviously it will not work, but I have a recording which shows you how it could look like. Important thing is that you create a model. As you can see, this is something relatively simple that you can create using your knowledge and using some business input. And this is also something very easy to discuss with business people. You don't need to have a PhD to be able to work on models like this. And the elements that you create here then can translate to actual things that the robotic arm will be doing, because it will send some REST API calls. And you can have it either as flowcharts or as Petri net elements. Now, let's see it in practice. So here you can see the Petri net model, and I have some calls. So here there are API calls for the robot. Of course, in advance, the robot would need to be available for us. We would need a security token and so on. But just to show it to you how it will behave. Here we are triggering something. Certain elements are being used, and take a look at what happens. The robot actually moves. It starts to do things. It is totally based on what is inside the model. So here we can see that we did not need any sugar, and now we'll be doing other elements. Now we are brewing coffee, and coffee is done. Now we need to reset. And voila, you can see that again it is moving. In a second, we'll see another example. Now, this time it will be based on a flowchart. So, we'll trigger picking up the coffee pad. Again, you can see some technical elements, some code that needs to be passed to the robotic arm. And let's execute. You could see that again, model is being executed and the robotic arm is moving. So you don't need some very, very detailed, some complicated code, because the model shows what needs to happen. This is something that you can easily use with discussions with business people. So at first we need to pick up the coffee pad, then we need to drop it, then we need to pick up the sugar, and so on and so on. So this is valuable both for business people and for IT people, because this way we can discuss easily with others and then move from the design to actual robot doing some elements. So this is one of the cases where you could use ADOxx-based tool, in this case, BApp, that you could already see. But of this is not everything. As I told you, there are also other configurations. For example, in DigiFoF, we'll be using also scene to model configuration. This is a different tool, and you can also, just like the app, you can download it from the OmniLab. By the way, for 8-level scenarios, you can not only see more content, you can not only download the tool, but you also have some details, some models, and other useful elements. Now, I will open the other tool, and please take a look what are the common elements and what are the differences. I'm opening Scene to Model, and as you can see, the user interface is absolutely the same. But what will be different will be the code and the functionality offered by the tool. Please take a look. If I would like to create a model, I have totally different options. I can create scenes, storyboards. I could also create some elements, but there are also elements that were not present in the past configuration. Now, I will show you an example, and by the way, I will show you how you can import the content. So I'll move to Import Export and select Import and take the sample models Scene to Model. I will not be expanding on the content. This is just a scenario showing you how you could order coffee during your travel, and it contains several BPMN diagrams, some overview company maps, and some specific elements. But the important thing is that both tools are based on ADOxx, but they offer you various functionalities. So here you can create some scenes which can be then translated to models. This is possible thanks to the options we can see here. So you can place the scenes and then they can be translated into models, and those models can be linked with actual models depicting step by step. So for example, you can see in a graphical form how does the travel look like for a person, and that a person wants to order a coffee, and then he hopes that after the travel is done, the coffee will be offered. And here you can see a link with a specific diagram showing that the first coffee robot arm needs to give coffee to the drone, and drone needs to deliver the coffee to the person who is thirsty. So the important thing is that ADOxx gives you lots of options and lots of possibilities. You can create various types of models and use them for various purposes. So this is how it can be done. This was just a very quick overview of several options available using ADOxx, but there are many places where ADOxx can support DigiFoF. So important thing is that you can start with models like this, or like this, or like this, and move from conceptual modeling to actual runtime environment where the robotic arm or mbot are doing something. Now, just a quick summary. If you want to learn more, you can go to ADOxx.org, then you can download the platform, you can read documentation, and if you would like to create some methods, there are also some elements which may be helpful for you. But for the purpose of DigiFoF, I think the most useful things will be the two configurations that you can already see. So B-App and Scene to Model. So if you want to, do feel free to go and download your configurations from omnilab.org or start right away at ADOxx.org. And now it's time for questions and answers. I can see question. Give me a second. This was a long question. The example that you show us from the app and from Scene to Model are available to every partner just by clicking or how? Yes, they're available. You can access them using the OmniLab. So here, for example, for the B app, if you search for BApp, you can here download the tool. So here you have Windows download, and also you have some scenarios, tutorials, and you can simply, here you can learn more about how to use the tool. And you have also links to the downloads where you can download the models. And when you have the models are ADL files. They can be afterwards imported just like I was showing you in the sim2model part. So all the elements that I was showing you are publicly available. You don't need to even register. Everything is available right away. So we can start working now. Okay, do we have any more questions? By the way, if you wish, afterwards we can send you along with the recording and along with the slides that I was using today. And we can also provide you links to the pages where you can download sim2model and BApp, and also the models, the ADL files that I was using. Okay, do you have any more questions? I don't see anything more, so I would like to thank you very much for taking part in this webinar, and I would like to invite you to participate in the upcoming webinar. We'll be contacting you pretty soon regarding date, time, and other details. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye bye.